fighter. I live in Coconut Creek, Florida. I train out of American Top Team down here, and I am married to Grant Dawson, who is also an MMA fighter. He fights in the UFC's lightweight division.
Okay, and well, there's a whole bunch of places I want to go with that. So you were recently signed to American Top Team, which is an awesome team, so congrats. Um, but you also recently had an injury, so I definitely want to touch on that. Do you want to start with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm really, really grateful to be training at ATT. ATT, like a lot of people don't necessarily know because there are lots of American Top Team locations. There are satellite gyms all around South Florida. Like, you can just sign up for a membership at those locations, but the one at Coconut Creek is exclusively for professional fighters. We do have a kids wrestling program there, which is really awesome. Super high level wrestlers in that room. But it is exclusively for professional fighters. It is a private gym. So to be able to be invited and to be able to train in that facility with these high level people is just amazing. I did tear my ACL, unfortunately. I have surgery a week from today. So I have surgery next Wednesday. Hopefully, get back into recovery. Everything goes smoothly. It's not my first knee surgery. It's actually my fifth.
Oh my
So
God, your fifth? Do you
only
know
my
how you
fifth.
did this one? Like, do you remember it happening?
So it's actually funny. The day I thought I tore it, so I was sparring with one of my training partners. Her name is Natalia Kuzatinya, absolute gangster. If you guys don't know who she is, she just won the LFA strawweight title. She's a G, so I was helping her with her camp, and totally fine. She did nothing. I'm like we aren't even touching. I was just like circling, and I stepped, and my knee kind of popped, and I like hit the mat. I was like, something's wrong. So obviously, I hopped out of the cage and started icing up, and I went and got an MRI the next day, and they said that I did have a completely torn ACL, but I also had a tear in my meniscus and a small like bone contusion, like a little teeny fracture at the top of my tibia.
Yeah, that would
Think.
make sense.
Yeah. And so, but apparently the ACL tear itself was quite old. So the pop that I felt was likely my meniscus tearing because when your quad muscle is supposed to stabilize everything in your knee, but when your quad muscle fatigues, the ACL takes over. Well, I didn't have an ACL to take over stability wise, so my meniscus was at risk. And it was the end of the week, last sparring round. So definitely lots of quad fatigue happening that week. So likely it had been torn for quite some time.
That is insane. And this is your fifth surgery?
Yes, so I did tear my ACL in my other knee. It was my first knee surgery in 2018. And then I've had a couple smaller injuries since then. I've had three meniscus surgeries after that, which were very quick, dealt with well, like maybe a couple months of PT. Meniscus tears are really, really common in MMA, especially for little fragile people like me. Um, but it is a very common injury. A lot of people retire from MMA with no meniscus left or very
Wow.
little. So it's pretty common to have those, but those are pretty short recoveries. And this will be my fifth surgery on this ACL.
How's the PT look for that?
So prehab has been really heavy on quad strengthening. So ideally, I will lose as little quad strength um, in my right quad as possible. I actually, when I first found out I tore it and I went to PT, my quad strength was at 94% of my other side, which I guess was really good.
Yeah.
So for a while, I was like, do I really need an ACL? But turns out I do. So I am going to get it fixed. But so the main focus is going to be obviously mobility, just getting that range of motion back. When I tore my left ACL in 2018, they used my hamstring tendon, to replace it, which I had a lot of success with. I've had no problems with that ACL since surgery, so I'm
Yeah.
hoping for the same success on the right. But really, no, I didn't have a lot of problems with my hamstring. It was a lot of mobility, like being able to fully bend my leg again and then getting that strength back. Something that I really hated was like relearning how to like kick with that impact of like your shin hitting the bag. It's such a weird feeling when
Mm-hmm.
you've recovered from a surgery like that, and it's so tender, and it's almost like you've lost all that conditioning through your shin. as you start like relearning how to kick.
Did you feel like any of it was this is I was in an accident and it felt like so much of it was mental. Like you didn't want like it's hard to go full out or it was hard to like because you didn't want to hurt it. Does that make sense? Even though you know it's fine. You've been rehabbing it, it's strong, you've got everything back, but it's like to really like lay into it, you're like mentally it's hard to get there. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. And that's one of the reasons I chose to have the reconstructive surgery. I actually talked with some of my teammates who don't have ACLs, who fought their entire careers without ACLs. But for me, I felt like the mental catch of like,
Totally.
is it going to be stable? Is it going to be there? Is it going to be okay in the middle of a fight was something I did not want to deal with. And so I feel like that absolutely is a thing when you're recovering from an injury. And I think it's one of the most important pieces for athletes is that you continue your rehab after your surgery and after your recovery. And it needs to be, I'm kind of, my thought process about this has changed a lot as I've gotten older and my body can't handle what it used to. But like warming up and keeping your mobility and your strength and really focusing on those elements have become so much more important to me as an older athlete. Like as I'm entering my 30s this year, I feel like if I want longevity of sport, I have to prioritize those things instead of just showing up. Okay, let's fight today, you know?
Yep. Yeah, it's a real thing. That's nuts. And then so with each of the surgeries, do you feel like the ones that you've had done that's stronger than before? It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. My left ACL, like I said, I've had no problems with that since. Like I feel like that quad is really strong, that hamstring's really strong. It's very stable. I have had a meniscus surgery on there since, but that was probably one of my quickest turnarounds. I had that surgery in March, and I was asking for a fight in May.
Oh, so, wow.
Like I was back in there, like going live. I was like, yeah, I think I could fight in a couple months. Like, let's start looking, you know? So I feel like it really has been very strong since that surgery. I think just the medical technology and the way surgeons do ACL surgeries now, there's almost no injury minus like an amputee where you can't have a normal return to sport. You know, I think it's something that people, it tends to end a lot of careers, but I really don't believe that it has to. Like, of course, I'm on knee surgery number 5. The amount of people that are like, hey, maybe you should just be done, you know? Like, I'm like, I know what people are going to say, but I'm not ready to give up this sport. I'm not ready to give up this career.
Yeah.
It's a part of the game. I have a coach who's had about over a dozen surgeries, you know, and so it just happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the reality is going into your 30s, if you take care of yourself, you're young. Like 30s is young. And honestly, like I have 2 kids. I feel like I'm in better shape now than like I was in good shape, but like there's things that you go through in life and it almost is like it pushes you to push harder so you can be in better shape and you take better care of yourself, whether it's the nutrition aspect or the fitness aspect or the stretching, the mobility stuff. Like they're all little pieces and they're all so important. So if you do it, you'll be fine.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think like we've prioritized our sleep so much. That's something Grant and I are like really trying to hone in on because we've sucked at it for ages, and we can tell a difference now because we are older, and that that recovery time is so important. And like my husband always says this, he's like, if sleep wasn't something that we had to do naturally, it would be considered a performance enhancing drug.
100%.
Guys, prioritize your sleep.
It's so important. And it's like, I got my husband a Whoop recent. I think I got it for this past year for his birthday, and he's like always checking the phone and the app, and I'm like, it's really like because it says the percentage and all the things, and he figured because he is a terrible sleeper. Like he wakes up, he's always been a terrible sleeper, but since he started doing this and being able to see his recovery and like all his numbers, he's made it a priority to figure out how to make his recovery better. And I think that it's a game changer.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. Nutrition matters, but sleep is number one.
totally. And are you doing anything else for recovery?
Yeah, we have a massage therapist that is
Nice.
amazing and comes to our house every single week. We were like, oh, maybe we should save some money while we aren't in camp.
No.
But like we still train the same amount almost as when we are in camp. So we were so sore after like 2 weeks. We're like, yeah, no, we need him. We need Robert.
It's important. I mean, it's recovery. It's worth it.
It's absolutely worth every penny. Soft tissue work. I am very mixed on cold plunge. I know it's all the rage right now. I think it's very misused and misunderstood. Is there benefit to cold exposure? Of course. However, there's also benefit to inflammation. Inflammation is necessary. Inflammation causes recovery.
Yeah, exactly.
It promotes recovery in the body. And also, my goal right now is going to be a lot more hypertrophy because I can't train MMA as much. So, and cold exposure is actually poor for hypertrophy. So I have mixed feelings on that. I know that might ruffle some feathers.
Yeah, whatever.
Some people that just absolutely love cold therapy. I think there's a lot of benefit. I ice like a motherfucker, especially when when I'm having knee problems. Ice is great, brings down inflammation, makes you feel better. Do it, absolutely. But I think soft tissue work. I've been trying to do some more mobility. I've been doing a lot of yoga in the mornings because I can't train. I'm not really going to practice. So I've been kind of just going through that, working some different mobility. I can still do a pistol squat. I found out on the Dawson
really?
the other day. It wasn't pretty.
Oh.
I did.
Oh my God. Well, be careful.
No, it was at physical therapy.
It felt fine? Yeah. Wow, that's nuts.
I can't tear it more. It's gone. So.
It's not going to get worse.
I can't tear my ACL.
Wow, that's nuts.
So I'm hoping I can keep. I'm going to use that as like a benchmark for when I get back because I've always really struggled with pistol squats anyway. So it's something I'm like, all right, I'm going to make this better.
Yeah.
Surgery.
Well, what are you training out like now in your, I guess, to supplement?
I'm just lifting a ton. Right now, obviously, PT has taken up most of my lower body days, and I want to make sure I'm fresh for those training sessions so we can gauge quad strength and stuff. But so I've just been benching like a crazy person. Yeah. I love bench. It's my favorite lift. My goal was to hit a 165 max last year, which
and you're tiny. What do you fight at what is it 105? Oh, okay. And you walk. What do you walk around at?
A little under 120 usually. Okay. I think I'm a little heavier right now because I'm not doing like any cardio. So I'm like 123-ish.
Okay.
I think
so you're small.
I'm weighing. So I'm small.
So 170, that's amazing.
I want to hit 170. So my max right now is a really ugly 160. So like real rough, like hips off the bench, everything.
Just fighting for your life.
I've hit a clean 155 and a 160. So goal for this year is maybe 170. That'd be sick.
Sounds like you're on your way.
We'll get there.
I'm excited to see this progression because I'm sure you'll get it like soon.
We're working on it. I hit like a 5 rep. We're gonna hit a 5 rep max on Saturday. My strength conditioning coach was saying. So if I can break 135 for a 5 rep max, I think I can. Because he was like, usually it's like 85% of your max is your 5 rep max. So I was like, okay, if I can break 135, then I can break 160. So that's like, we're going to like fingers crossed for like a 140-ish 5 rep max on Saturday, which is really freaking heavy. So
that's so exciting though. But I mean, it's weird. I hear so many different things and I've read different like theories on it. But depending when you're on your cycle, like I find that I'm actually stronger when I'm on my period. So I guess depending when you are, where that lies with when you're going for this, maybe you'll be stronger or not.
That's a good point. Yeah. I feel the best, like ovulation area of my cycle. I feel like a freaking gangster. Like that's when I like want to go lift heavy weight and like do everything.
It's a real thing. Like, the whole timing of cycle and stuff.
I've seen there's starting to be some new research on that as well for like strength training, which is a very new, like it's a very new category. I feel like that hasn't been researched very heavily, so I'm interested to see more of that come out.
It's so weird that it hasn't. There's this woman, I can't remember her name, but her motto is like, women are not small men. And it's such a real thing because it's like
100%.
with everything women, they basically just make it pink and then they make it smaller for women. And if it's like, it's just for men. And like, that's her whole thing. And it's very true because it's like, there's nothing is researched specifically. I mean, now a little bit, but it's like just now, it's 2023. It's like crazy, you know, just finally we're getting around to figuring things out for women, like specifically tailored to women.
100%.
And even more crazy, they know nothing about when you're pregnant. Like there's zero, nothing.
Well, for the longest time, they were like, "Oh, don't lift weights when you're pregnant," and it's like, but now we're seeing these CrossFit athletes and these retired elite athletes do so much better and be so much healthier, and their abdominal wall recovers quicker.
Everything, pelvic floor, everything.
Better. So I'm like, I'm gonna be lifting like crazy heavy while I'm pregnant.
100%.
Not even physical like training. I've even had a couple women show up on my like For You page and I love this, talking about like motivational like books and techniques and like what works for people. And she's like, and there's always, this is one of my favorite quotes, she was like, there's always like a dedication in the beginning of the book, and it's like, for Mary, who takes our kids to all their events and supports me, blah blah blah. And she's like, I need Mary to write a book because my life isn't the husband's life, like my life is Mary's. Like I need to know how Mary gets through life, you know.
Yeah,
it's so true. Like I've kind of noticed that, like there's a lot of good things that we can take from books, like from a lot of these self-help books, but I feel like a lot of these pieces don't necessarily apply to homemakers or mothers. I don't even have kids yet, but I can't imagine trying to like follow Atomic Habits' rules with like 3 kids.
It's crazy.
I don't think that would happen.
It's completely not applicable.
Yeah, we need some ladies to publish some more books. I would be very interested to see that. See some more successful women put out literature on that.
Definitely. And it's like, it's so nice. I mean, I guess even now with like podcasts and stuff, it's really nice being able to like talk with them and interview and like what you're saying. Like I've had, I don't know how much, like how far you go back or how much you're into it, but a while ago I had Kara Saunders on, who's like, she's like one of the top, I think she's Australian, but she's like the top women's, this is before Tia Toomey, CrossFit athlete, like in the world. Like I know nobody. She's mega fit, very whatever. So anyhow, I had her on after she had her first little one. And it was really interesting to talk to her because like, I come from the CrossFit world. And so I've like been lucky enough to train with a lot of these like professional athletes. And it's like nuts to see how they go through their pregnancy. Cause it's like, yeah, this is what your body knows. Like it doesn't know to be stagnant and to do nothing. So if you do nothing, like you're going to be miserable. And there's like now so many statistics that show like, oh, it's obviously good. The circulation and the blood flow and all like the cardiovascular health, how much it helps a baby. And like all these different statistics that show like the likelihood of you being fit and how that will translate to your kid versus being not even obese, just overweight and unhealthy. Or all the women that say, oh, well, I'm pregnant, so I'm just going to indulge. And it's like, this is the worst time for you to indulge and eat shit food. Like this is when you want to take care of your
somebody else.
Yes, yes, it's crazy.
It's like, I'm sure we're going to eat more. I'm sure.
Yes, you're going to have cravings. Okay, fine. I get that. But like to go into it saying like, I'm just going to trash myself. It's like, you really want to do that? Like, you're setting up essentially their whole future with what you're doing now.
Yeah, and then nuts. They see things and they remember things and they build those habits so much earlier than I think people think. And like, I love seeing these moms in their home gym with their kid, like have the baby Bjorn on the treadmill. Like, I feel like that's such good habits to build and such a good example to set. And like, absolutely, that's what I want to do when I'm a mom.
100%.
We're going to be in the gym every day with us.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think even like, not even, but specifically for MMA or whatever type of like martial art or self-defense, for kids to see that their mom is doing it, it's like the best, most like, because I mean, we live in a wild world. And for a woman to be able to defend themselves, it's like crucial.
Oh
So
yeah.
for kids to be able to see that and to like know their mom is strong and like can handle stuff, it's super important.
There was a video that was like went viral for a while, and there was a woman, and like her like baby carriage was like rolling. She fell in a parking lot, and her baby carriage was
Just
rolling towards a busy street, and she just physically could not get up. And I can't. I just felt like
yes.
terror for her in that moment.
And
Like
some random guy saved it or
imagine-
something, right?
Yeah. I cannot imagine not being able to protect and take and care for my
It's
babies.
crazy.
Like, what a horrible feeling. Like, that's a feeling I never want to have.
It's crazy. We were at a it was like a jungle gym play thing with all the balls and the tunnels and stuff. And I had my one little one, I think she might have been 3, and then my youngest one was probably like 4 months old, so I always had her like just on my chest. Like when we travel, I don't normally take her in the stroller. I just keep her on me because whatever.
It's
And
probably way easier.
it's way easier. And this lady, her kid was stuck up in the thing, and she was like asking, and she couldn't get up there. Like she, like literally just couldn't. And I don't know why or whatever reason she asked me. I don't even think she noticed I had one on me because I just had like a jacket on. And she asked if I could go up and see if I could like, you know, like see what was going on. So I ended up going up there. Like literally, it was like way up in this little teeny tiny tunnel through the balls, through all this stuff. And it's crazy because I get up there and then the kid is stuck and doesn't want to come down. So I like grab the kid and I'm like trying to go through and I'm like, I got this one here and this one. And I'm like, but it's like one of those things where I'm like, if you're not doing it for you, do it for your kids.
100%.
Like, it's crazy.
No, I agree, and it sets a precedent for them. Like, if your kids don't see you do these things, they're probably not going to do them themselves. They're either going to be like afraid and start doing it because they see you at an extreme, which hopefully never has to happen, because that's horrible for your child to choose to be healthy because they see their family members, you know, possibly losing their lives. But it's also like, or they have to see you do these things every day and just build good habits. And it doesn't have to be extreme. Like, it's in the same way, we don't want to see our kids, we don't want our kids to see us, you know, overeat and or, you know, make ourselves unhealthy on that end. You also, like, I have to work on my self-talk because fighters, this is something Grant and I talk about all the time too. Fighters have, like, we all are like, oh, you fat fuck. Like, you're just at the gym with your friends and you're like, fatty. You know, or like, I say about myself, like, right now, I'm like, oh, I'm so fat right now. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm really not. Like, of course not. I'm in perfectly good health. I have a good, healthy blood sugar, blood pressure. Like, have to stop like saying that about myself, or it's gonna be a habit. You know, when your kids start saying, "Oh yeah, I'm fat," it's like, oh shoot, like, I know where you got that, and it's for me. You know, like, we also can't have them see us like over dieting and being extremely restrictive. Like, my passion project is like helping young athletes with nutrition. Like, my gosh, the stuff I hear adult professional athletes say is bad enough. The stuff that high school wrestling coaches say, or parents, or, you know, like, or these kids that, especially young wrestlers, like, I'm not surprised that most combat athletes have some sort of disordered eating at this point, because the tools that are the resources we have are very limited at that age. So that's kind of my passion project, is educating these young kids so they can build those habits.
I can't remember who I was listening to, but I was just listening to a podcast about that. And it's so true, whether it's wrestling, because you have to make weight, gymnastics, like there's so many things with little kids. And it's like as if there's not enough pressure from social media world. Like, it's crazy. It's so true. And that's awesome. I didn't know that American Top Team had a kids program down there for wrestling. That's awesome.
Yeah, Coach Mako. So Steve Mako is the head wrestling coach for the MMA team, and he also has a very extensive kids program there. And man, some of these kids are so good.
That's awesome.
Like, it's nuts. Like, they're 15 and they look like grown men.
I'm sure. Well, it's crazy because there's I can't remember where I saw it, but it was like there were like it might have been a meme or something, but it's so true because kids like take everything to water. Like as soon as you put it in front of them, they will figure it out. Kids are so good at everything basically that you put in front of them. But it was like a ski instructor was teaching an adult class, like a ski whatever, and there were all these little 2-year-olds going, who 2-year-olds like you're still kind of new at walking, and the kids were just zipping by, and the adults were like, what? And the instructor was like, don't worry, you're never going to be that good. And it's so funny because it's literally with everything that you put in front of a kid, they'll figure it out.
They're fearless too. Like I almost miss that. Like I honestly can tell you the last time I experienced that was my amateur debut for
Okay.
MMA. I was obviously an adult, but like I had no idea that this was going to be my career. I had no idea what to expect. I'd never lost. I hadn't lost yet. I hadn't even really been like hit in the face that hard yet. You know, like I was just so excited and fearless. And ever since that day, I've never felt like that again walking into a fight. And I'm like, why can't I just have that one more time? That just like pure and ignorant bliss.
Ignorance is bliss, it's for sure. If you didn't always want to be a fighter, what was your like path?
So I went to school. I went to college. I was a business major for a year. I realized that was stupid. And then I got into, I switched to biology, and I was like, okay, I'm going to study. For a little bit, I was thinking about veterinary school, but I was like, that also sounds hard. So I was focused on genetics. I was studying like molecular biology and genetics was where I set it.
Sounds even harder than veterinary school.
I honestly probably, which is why I didn't finish. I went and studied abroad. I got to kind of get out of my comfort zone. I meant to leave Missouri for college, and I kind of just, I don't know if it was anxiety, I don't know if it was procrastination, but I just didn't end up applying to all that many schools. I got into Missouri State in Springfield, my hometown. I had a good amount of scholarship money, and I was the caretaker for my grandma at the time, who was living in Springfield because my parents had moved to Utah since then. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll just stay. So I stayed, and it was kind of meh because it's Missouri. And I ended up getting an opportunity to study abroad with my animal reproduction professor.
Oh.
So he took 4 students to Sri Lanka, and we got to, talk with some research students of his, some graduate students that were studying there that were like doing some research on the wild elephants. We got to go to an elephant sanctuary, an orphanage, and like interact with the animals.
That's so cool.
It was so cool. And so I was like, I got back and I was like, I hate Missouri. I need to travel again.
What am I doing here?
Immediately applied for another study abroad program, which I went to Australia for a semester. And the plan was kind of to like finish up there because you don't need as many gen eds there because they realized that it's stupid for a biology student that's going to veterinary school to take a bunch of sociology and history or whatever else.
Yeah.
So there weren't as many gen ed requirements. So I was kind of like, maybe I could finish school here. And then I didn't. I came back and I was kind of in limbo because I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. And I needed like another semester, I think, to finish my degree. And I was like, And I just didn't really go back because I realized I didn't actually want to work in a lab for the rest of my life, which is pretty much all you can do with a bachelor's in genetics, unless you want to get a master's, which I didn't want to go to school for 4 or 5 more years. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go out into the world. So I got really into bodybuilding at that time. I did my first show in Australia.
Wow.
I did.
Is it big there?
I honestly don't know. There was quite a few shows. It might have been just big in the community because I found like a community of gym bros that I like attached myself to. And I was kind of living in my own bubble there because I was a Jane student. But I did a show there. It was really fun. I came back and did, I don't remember which one it was. There's so many, and it's been forever. But I ended up doing a show back here too. And I really enjoyed prep, but I hated competing. It was just
what kind?
I did bikini.
Okay.
Just little. I didn't train long enough to have the maturity to do like what these figure women look amazing. Yeah,
it's insane.
I would need way more time in the gym, just building to do something like that. But so I did a show when I got back as well, and I got really into that. I went out to Vegas for the Mr. Olympia, and I just to go go to the expo, hang out, because you get to meet all sorts of like famous people.
It's awesome.
It was really cool, and I went to a gym and I was like hitting the bag because I would do that for fun. And some old dude came up and like was like, "Oh, here, I'll hold pads for you." Except it was really hard to understand, and so which will be relevant later. But he started.
Who was it?
And I did not know who it was.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, "Cool, that was really dope." And like the owner of the gym came over to me. He's like, "You literally just hit pads with Floyd Mayweather Sr." And I was like, "So if you've ever heard him talk,
I know.
very hard to understand."
That's him. Yeah.
So I talked with him and his manager afterwards, and they were like, "Oh, like you should come out and train at the gym for a week." So they put me in touch with a female boxer of theirs. So I came out, and I stayed with her for a week. Her name's Kylie Fulmer, really talented boxer. She's super good. I stayed with her, did her training schedule for like a week, went to the gym. Floyd held pads for me every day. It was dope.
That's awesome.
And I came back to Missouri and was like, "Okay, I want to box."
Here I am again. Why am I here?
Why am I back here? And I was like, "Okay, I want to box." So I was like, I looked for a boxing gym. There weren't really that many options. So I found a boxing coach at an MMA gym. And I was just like, "No, I just want boxing." And he's like, "Okay, well, we can do like private." So I worked with him privately for like probably 3 weeks. And then I went to I stayed for one jiu-jitsu class, and I was like, "Oh, this is the best." So I was like, "Fuck boxing. I don't need boxing anymore." So I was like, "This is what I'm going to do." So I trained for like 3 months, did a jiu-jitsu tournament, trained for 3 more months, and had my first MMA fight. So
wow.
This is history.
It's like, and you did, this was kind of as an adult. This was in your 20s.
I was 21 when I started training.
Okay. So you've been in it now for almost 10 years, 9 years, 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, coming up on a decade.
Wow. So it flies.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That is so, and it's almost like I guess that when you come across someone like that, you're like, it's meant to be.
Oh, 100%. It was like the most serendipitous moment ever. And like, he was like, "Yeah, you should do this." And I was like, because I loved hitting the bag. Like, I'd been going and hitting the bag at the YMCA since I was like 8 years old. Never once did it occur to me. Not once did it occur to me. Like, I asked my parents to sign me up for gymnastics, soccer, ice hockey. I did cheer for a long time. Not once did it occur to me to ask my parents to do a martial art. And I was like, "Do you know how freaking good I would be right now if my dad put me in martial arts at 8?
Mm-hmm.
Be a freaking gangster." But it's so I feel like I wouldn't have ever ended up in the sport if I hadn't had that experience.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Nobody had been like, "Oh, you want to come to this jiu-jitsu or boxing gym like that." I didn't know people like that,
Wow. So what is your favorite martial art then? Or I guess, I don't know. Yeah. Which one?
Not striking. The irony. But no, I love grappling. I want to say like jiu-jitsu, but not sport jiu-jitsu, like wrestling, MMA. MMA applicable jiu-jitsu is so fun to me. I love wrestling. I love top control, the back.
Do you do gi or no? You don't. You just do no gi now.
I have not put a gi on in.
Okay, so that makes sense.
4 years, 3 years probably.
It's not really. It's applicable, obviously, but it's not for what you're doing because you're not using that when you fight.
100%. I think there's some good application. I think if you do a lot of gi and you're good at like escaping and getting up in the gi, you're going to be even better at escaping and getting up in no gi. But I also think that it's a little unrealistic because it's easier to keep the back in gi. You have grips. There's a lot more stalling positions in gi, and people are a lot more comfortable to play off their back, which is terrible for MMA.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a good guard. Like, I have good get up. You don't need a good guard to be a good MMA fighter. You have to be good at getting up. That's it.
Luckily, you got it.
Yeah. That's like, if you're going to work on one thing or the other, if you're going to work on triangles and arm bars or getting up, like, work on getting up if you're a fighter.
So that actually leads me to a hilarious, so I had a super embarrassing thing happen to me at one point. Do you have any sort of, or I guess, what is your most embarrassing thing that's happened to you when you're either in a fight or training or whatever? for example, this, I don't know why this, because you said triangle. I had someone put me in a body triangle. It was literally my first class ever in a BJJ class. And I, of course, was like, and I looked around. I started, I was laughing so hard. I don't even think he heard it, but I heard it because he was just smushing the shit out of me, literally. I mean, the fart out of me. It was so funny. And I'm like, obviously mortified to this day, but I don't even think he heard it. And it didn't smell. So
Oh, dude, I've farted in so many roles. Like, maybe it's because I've been training so long, or because I train with fighters and we just don't care. But like, that didn't even like occur to me as an embarrassing thing when you brought that up. I was like, do I have an embarrassing moment? I can't tell you how many times I've farted in triangles and freaking back. Like, somebody else has my back. Like, absolutely. Like, that's a regular occurrence.
I don't. We were talking about it the other day, and I don't think that I will ever get used to when someone's sweat drops in my mouth or my eyes. Like, it is just the grossest thing.
That's why you have to be good at getting up.
Correct. Valid. It is so disgusting.
Good motivation. Put the sweatiest dude with the biggest beard and who's small
and the hairiest.
Get up.
Yeah.
On get-ups. That's some good motivation right there.
It's so disgusting.
It's gross. Honestly, I'm to the point right now where like I haven't sweated like I normally would, and I haven't like had the pleasure of rolling around in anybody else's sweat for several weeks since I can't train right now. And I feel weird, like I finished lifting and I'm like not sweaty.
You're like so now what?
What
do I do now?
For like hot yoga or something, so I can be drenched again. Like
totally. There is something special about being just drenched.
Maybe I'm just used to it by now. I don't like. I'm past the gross out stage.
Yeah, no, it completely aches me out. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think there should be a rule that they have to wear like a rash guard, like under their gi, but they don't.
I hate rash guards.
See, I really like it. I appreciate how it just keeps everything inside, especially on other people.
Definitely, like, I think in jiu-jitsu it's more common, like a lot, like IBJJF I think requires a rash guard and stuff. Like fighters, it's like, maybe we're just grosser. I don't know.
You're just used to it.
Whatever works. Like,
You're used to it.
Yeah.
It's okay. I won't judge you. You're like, I prefer it, actually.
No, it's fair. You're more civilized than us.
Hardly. Just hardly. That's too funny. Speaking of men training with women, because you're in a contact and combat sport, have you come across that at all? Trans women or trans men? I don't know which is which with the way it's worded.
A trans woman.
The ones that have penises that are trying to be women.
Yes, trans women. So I have not, and I never will, because I am not dumb enough to take a fight against a biological man, and no one should be, because men and women are different. Serena Williams did an interview a long time ago, and I really commend her for coming forward and saying this, because the popular thing to say as a female athlete is like, oh, we're the same and I can beat all the guys, and it's just not true. Am I saying that there are no exceptions to the rule? Of course there are. There's a girl right now, I can't remember what state she's from, but she's just like a freaking killer in high school wrestling, and she's just demolishing, winning. Like, she won, I'm pretty sure she won state like a couple years in a row.
Oh, wow.
In her state, but she's also in a smaller weight class where it's way less dangerous and way easier. Like at 145, like if you had a male featherweight and a female featherweight, like the chances of an injury are just so extreme. And I don't train with guys. Like I train
really
with guys.
Now even you don't.
I am so blessed to be an American Top Team where I have.
There's like a lot to choose from. Like not choose from, but
training partners, and I prefer it. Because it's realistic. Like one of two things is going to happen if I train with a guy. Either he's going to smash me, especially in a room like ATT. Like, if we had recreational guys coming in that were brand spanking new and there was a smaller guy, yeah, I'd probably do pretty well. But that's not who I'm training with. I'm training with elite
Mm-hmm.
professional athletes every day. Like, these guys can either smash me and not let me work at all,
Mm-hmm.
which makes neither of us better,
Right.
or they can let me work, which isn't realistic, and once again doesn't make either of us that much better.
Mm-hmm.
I think in that realm, there's a time and place for it. Like, there are sometimes on our jiu-jitsu days, there's less girls. Sometimes I'll roll with some of the guys, and it's so fun. Love rolling with some of these high-level guys. Like, they'll let me work. They'll teach
Mm-hmm.
while they're rolling. Like, there's absolutely a time and a place for that. But if that was my only training partner, I wouldn't be as good as I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm so blessed that I get to show up and actually compete with another atom weight every day who's high level, because I wouldn't be as good of a fighter if I couldn't do that. And a lot of girls do have to train with guys just because they're in smaller gyms. When I was in Missouri, I trained with some male flyweights more often than I trained with females. But it's so different, and it is so dangerous for combat sports to see this happening. Like, fractured skull fractures don't happen in MMA. Like, I can think of one example outside of this one that I'm going to bring up, and that was when MVP kneed Dude Cyborg and his, like, Caveman. That's the only one I can think of in men's MMA or in women's. Fallon Fox fractured a woman's skull.
Yep.
And Fallon Fox was a biological male until, like, well into, I believe, like, late 20s.
He was like, also she, whatever, this person, the Fallon, whatever, was like an army ranger or something crazy.
I'm not sure if there's another trans athlete who was in the military. I'm not, and I know that, but I think that's a different person. I can't remember. Maybe Fallon
She's
Fox
got like purple hair or pink hair.
Yeah, Fallon Fox is black.
No. I'm thinking of, okay, no.
White dude with, like, all the chest tattoos.
Yeah, him, her,
Yeah,
whatever.
I know. I've heard that story as well. But Fallon Fox. So Fallon Fox is not necessarily the most skilled athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are
more
lower
skilled
level bantamweights in the UFC that have beat Fallon Fox, that are actually, like, biological women. Still managed to fracture another woman's skull. So not even a super skilled athlete, but the physicality and the difference produces so much more danger. And that's where it's no longer just about fairness and Title IX and making sure these women have opportunities to win college scholarships, because that absolutely matters. Riley Gaines had a huge success last year. Super happy for her, because it is important. That is important. But now we're moving to safety. USA Boxing has just released that they are going to allow trans women to compete against women. And that is going to be really scary in a sport like boxing. And I actually am more concerned about it in boxing than I am in MMA.
100%.
In boxing, if you get knocked out, you have 10 seconds to stand back up and get another concussion on top of that concussion. And the power difference between men and women is so drastic. It is a really dangerous game. And the unfortunate thing is the research that is available, which is actually quite substantial, is just simply being ignored. Like, there's a meta-analysis of 19 different studies with quite large sample sizes that compared biological women with trans athletes and some of them had been like 7+ years since their transition of being on hormone therapy. There was still, even after 7 years, still very extreme differences in skeletal muscle mass, athletic performance, overall physicality, as well as recovery. And so the difference, like, I agree with you. I think it's a very dangerous game to play. I understand that everybody wants the right to compete, and I think that there is a case to be made for trans leagues, and I would love to see that happen. I unfortunately just think that is something that a trans athlete is going to have to pioneer themselves, because I don't see another way that will happen. And right now, there's very little incentive for somebody to do that when they're being allowed to compete against biological women.
Yeah, I don't know why women just don't say no. No.
I understand, and I think there's two reasons. One, I think it seems better to compete than to not. because it's like, okay, well, I've been working so hard. I don't want to just not compete, which I agree with you. They should say no, but I understand the thought process of I've worked so hard. I want to compete. I want to be able to do this. But I also think it's a cultural issue that we're dealing with right now, where we're constantly being told as
Definitely
young women that we're the same as men, which, like, we are equal, but we're different.
Correct.
Like, we can be equal and of equal value. That doesn't mean that we're exactly the same and that we share the same physical attributes and that it's a level playing field. And I think that's the problem, is culturally we're just young women are being told that, and so they genuinely believe that they are going to be able to beat a man in a fight, which in very, very rare circumstances where men are not trained, sure, that might be a possibility. But even if I were to engage with an untrained man that is attacking me on the streets, the chances that I would win a fight to the death are pretty much, depending on his size and strength, he's much bigger than me, it's zero. Now, can I do enough to get away safely with my life? Probably, but that is a whole lot different than fighting to the death. And when we're in MMA, we are simulating a fight to the death.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that thing with boxing is so spot on, because when you get hit, you're blurry. So, like, all the adrenaline, this, that, you know, might make it up through the count, and then you go back to fight, and poof, you get another knock, and then it's worse than it was. So it is like a real danger. As in MMA, like, it's stopped, that's it. Like, there's no, oh, maybe I'm kind of getting my bearings back, maybe I'm kind of, no, like, the ref stops it, that's it. It's not, oh, you get 10 seconds to pretend you're okay, put your hands up.
Yeah. Like, and even in MMA, we're seeing fractured skulls, which I think I know, like, skull fractures would be pretty rare in big gloves, but that doesn't mean that there isn't long-term brain damage. Like, I think women have a slight advantage over men in MMA, not competing against each other, but just overall career-wise, for, like, longevity of career, because there's not a whole lot of females that are suffering from, like, CTE. We don't take as much damage. And so I think that we could see a massive increase in rates of CTE and brain damage in female athletes if we have them competing against biological males.
Yeah, it's super scary. I'm not on board with it at all. So it's crazy. I didn't know that. And I think that I didn't know that about the boxing thing, that they are allowing that, which is, I guess there's a bunch of different leagues, so maybe some will, some won't.
I'm not super well versed. This was just an article I read that said USA Boxing, so I'm not
something
sure
to look into.
Level that's being allowed for, if it's like youth through youth, if it's adult, if it's like for the US team. I'm not positive on any of that.
And then it almost seems like with some of the smaller leagues for MMA, they would do it to gain, like, traction. Like, Dana White would never ever allow it.
And that's why I'm grateful that I'm signed to a league that is all female, that I do not think I don't think Invicta will be signing any trans athletes anytime soon. And I am quite aware that the UFC, PFL, any major organization is probably also not going to do that, which I'm happy for the women of MMA for that. But it's also, man, MMA outside the UFC is kind of dying right now. Like, if we really look, like, I'm super grateful to be signed to an organization at this point, because when I recovered from my meniscus surgery, we tried to look for a fight for me outside of an organization, for like a major organization, for like 6 months with nothing.
That's crazy.
No takers. There's so few shows now. And so some of the less than stellar local shows are willing to put on these circuses and these crazy fights, or like these celebrity bouts.
Yeah.
And I think it's sad for the sport. I don't think the PFL Bellator merger is necessarily a positive thing for the sport, because it just takes away more places where athletes can fight outside of the UFC. So I really hope that they're successful with their merger, because if not, I think that could be really detrimental to the sport, as we're already losing, like, a lot of local platforms for fights. Yeah,
you're right. And the way you use the word circus is exactly right.
I'm pretty sure there's a show called Fight Circus that, like,
is there? I don't.
like team. It's like bizarre. They do like one big fat guy and like 5 little girls, or like it's like bizarre.
An actual circus.
And
Okay.
it's funny to watch for sure, but it's not real combat sports. You know, it's a show. It's a show.
It's like the WWF or whatever, the entertainment.
Yes, for sure.
Yes. What is the worst place to get hit as a female? Because obviously with guys it's different.
I've been kneed right in like the pelvic bone. That hurts. I would say, I don't know. I'm kind of having to lean towards like liver. Like I've been dropped with like a liver shot in sparring before, and that's just brutal. And then there's also like the tip of your nose.
Oh yeah.
Where, like, you get nailed like right on the button, your eyes just start watering. It's not so much that it hurts, but like you can't see.
Yep.
But I think I gotta go with liver. Liver is nasty.
Is the worst. What do you think is the least effective martial art?
I think this is a tough question because like if we're talking about for like overall defense, I'd say like your more traditional martial arts. If you go and you take Tai Chi or I don't know a whole lot of traditional martial arts or like Kung Fu. I think there's ways they can be applicable. Like there are really high level MMA fighters who have backgrounds in Kung Fu. There are
Really?
But they also you have
do
to
other supplement
other martial arts. But I think it has like they're like capoeira, like all these older traditional martial arts. Some of these guys have foundations in those, and then they branch out and move on to other things. I think they're all great for different things, and I would like to see more people get involved in traditional martial arts. My opinion of this has changed really drastically over the last few years. I definitely think a lot of fighters are kind of snobby about this. About people doing traditional martial arts, and I don't feel that way so much anymore. Like it's I want to see more people get involved, even if it's not the ones that I believe they should be involved in, like jiu-jitsu and wrestling and
the useful
Muay Thai,
ones.
Yeah, but useful for what? Useful for me because I'm an MMA fighter, but that doesn't mean it's not useful for like what you
kids and discipline and stuff like that.
Discipline, absolutely, like. Or just to have something that builds your confidence. Like a kid in Taekwondo is better off than a kid doing nothing.
Absolutely.
Jiu-Jitsu is probably better off than the kid in Taekwondo from a bullying, self-defense standpoint, but the kid doing Taekwondo can absolutely do Jiu-Jitsu too. Like I like seeing people more involved in traditional martial arts, and I feel like there's been a little bit of a resurgence lately between like Cobra Kai got everybody in karate and just the culture surrounding the UFC has gone from drunk guys wearing tap out gear in like the early 2000s to like people who really love and appreciate martial arts, and I want more of those people in my sport. So I'm for it all.
I like that. It's funny because I actually thought for like so long that karate, I'm going to use this word really loosely. I thought karate was just so gay. Like I just thought it was so blah. But then with Wonder Boy, he's like incredible. So it's really like, you know, when you see someone who that's their thing, you're just like, oh, okay. Like, I'm wrong. You're right.
And obviously he's trained with MMA fighters for years, which is why his karate can be applied in an MMA fight.
Yes.
So it's, I just want people who actually train martial arts to teach people. I just want to get rid of all the McDojos. If we can, McDojo Life is doing the Lord's work. I don't know if you follow him, but he shares all the scammy, fake.
No, I got to look into him.
Let me push my energy through you, and all the guys fall down. Like I just want those guys to go away.
What? I don't even know this. This is. I need to look it up.
Oh, you have to. It's the videos are hysterical, but it's also really depressing that there are people that pay these people money.
That's nuts.
And they think that, like the Dust guy, I don't know if you saw him, like the Detroit tactical guy who teaches horrible techniques for like disarming people with firearms. Like,
oh god,
these people are gonna get somebody killed. If we can just get rid of those guys and keep nice traditional martial arts, I'd be in support of that.
It's kind of like the fitness people who are in shape and they're fit. But it's just mostly genetics, and then they try to train people, and then people just end up getting injured.
Or even if it's not genetics, I feel like it's what I've noticed is it's anecdote. this is the problem, is it's anecdote. There are people who for sure have worked hard
Yes.
and they've done what they've done, but they don't actually understand the mechanism behind what
Correct.
they did. So they're like, oh, well, I did keto and I lost weight. It's like, okay, well,
Yes.
you used keto to get into a calorie deficit.
Yes.
That doesn't mean keto made you lose weight. It means that keto made you
Yes.
go into a calorie deficit, which made you lose weight. People don't understand that. And so I
Mhm.
think that that's the problem, is everybody thinks that their anecdote is science.
Yes. They know best. And yes. Yeah, it's wild. And especially with social media, you see everything. There's so many things.
Oh yeah, and that's why I have so much. I love me some Lane Norton, Alan Aragon, Andy Fung, all these guys with legitimate
Mhm.
PhDs and backgrounds in these areas
Mhm.
that are sharing actual evidence, and they're breaking it down for people who don't know how to read evidence, because most people can't actually research.
Right.
People think research means I typed something into Google and I read the first article that popped up. That's not research. If you don't understand how to read a study from beginning to end and
Mhm.
understand the data itself, which most people don't.
They
The
don't.
only reason I do is because I went to school for it. And there's
Mhm.
no shame in that. Find a guy, though, like Lane Norton or Alan Aragon, who is willing to break down those studies and isn't selling anything.
Yeah.
You know, they're not selling like their supplements or anything like that. They're purely just giving
Knowledge,
you
yeah.
the information from an unbiased standpoint. Follow those guys, because they will break those studies down in a way for you to understand them, even if you can't read that research yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so important to find facts. Like, not the follow the science, this is bullshit, but like actual real data.
Well, and there's people who manipulate data too. Like there's a study that just came out, I believe from Harvard, and it was actually a really well conducted study, and it compared animal protein diets to vegan based diets, and the plant based diets improved health markers. Now, what if you actually read the study, you'll see that the animal based diets, who also increased their fiber and lowered calorie intake, also improved health markers, but some of the people who are on the vegan diet ate more fiber, because typically if you switch to a plant-based diet, you're going to increase your fiber. So what the study really showed is that how important dietary fiber is, not that vegan diets are healthier than animal-based diets, but if you don't understand all the nuances of the study, you miss that. And so instead everybody's like, oh,
Plants
meat's
for the
bad.
win.
And it's that fear mongering that we see, and then people on Instagram who make a fortune off of selling BS. Like, those people capitalize on those moments in research where people just don't quite understand what the study actually says.
That, and it's so interesting to hear people say like, "Oh, I'm saving the environment when I eat," and it's like you're literally doing the exact opposite when you're doing plant-based. Like, where do you get your information from? Like, it's really
There's reasons. If people, there are absolutely ways you can eat plant-based and hit your protein goals, but it can be difficult. But like, you can do that. I want people to understand why they're doing what they're doing, because
Yeah.
like, there's not a one size fits all. And nutrition has so much context, and people miss out on that context so much. So I feel like there's my pastor says this, and I think it's really good. He's like, truth without grace is just mean, and grace without truth is meaningless. And obviously he's applying it biblically,
Yeah.
but I feel like it can also be applied to us trying to educate people. Like, if you're a freaking asshole but you have the information, nobody's gonna listen to you. And if you just tell people, oh, like, do what you feel, eat when you want, eat what feels good to you, but you don't give them the information, then you're not actually helping them. And so we have to find like this middle. And I feel like there's a really good group of people in social media right now, who are trying to do that, like Lane Norton and Alan Aragon. And Lane's a little harsh, but he is you can tell he cares about
sincere,
helping people,
yeah.
them. And so like, the way you have to approach this with people, like, you can't be an asshole if you want them to listen, and you can't not give them information if you want them to succeed. So it's like, we got to find this happy medium.
Yeah, it's and I mean, the way our society's turning, and the rates and numbers and percentages of obesity, it's like there needs to be some sort of fixed soon.
Well, and we're seeing, and I think that this was a wake up call for some people because I feel like we're seeing an influx of people wanting to follow people like Lane and Alan, and I think that I know there were several TikTokers and influencers who were very very overweight, who like that was kind of their thing was being
Mm-hmm.
overweight,
Yep.
and that was what they were promoting. That all passed away like in their 30s, which
Whoa.
is terrifying and really sad for these people. And so I think there has been a little bit of a wake up call from that. And then we also had on the other end of that, there was an influencer who was eating like just fruit, and she passed away from malnutrition. And it's a scary. It's so scary what misinformation can do. And I've had this argument with Grant so much because obviously nutrition is my background, it's my passion, and I'm like, I want these people to be liable for this. Like,
Yeah.
I want these people to be liable for this. But at the same time, there is no good way to police that. And also, if you are the person who is purchasing this product that you've done zero research on, like, there's consequence to that.
Yep.
If you are not, looking into the studies and looking into the data, and you're following these influencers, like, there are consequences to that. There's a guy that's telling people he can cure their type 1 diabetes and telling them to go off their insulin. He has millions of followers.
Really?
Like, it is scary. Like, absolutely, there should be some legal action, but also, how do you even police that? How can you police? Because I'm not.
It's just ignorance. People like believing it.
100%, and that's kind of on them. But I'm also a free speech advocate, so it's like you can't start like telling people what they can and can't say. But it's also scary. Like, if you are sharing your expertise and it's false, like, what's the answer for that? Because there's so much misinformation out there, and it is dangerous. It's so much more than just, why can't you just let people say what they want and do what they want? It's like, because you're guys like Lane Norton, I believe they are obligated to call these guys out, and they are, which I commend them for.
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, it's not funny, but it's interesting because it's so many different niches. Like, it almost seems like every niche has these people we were talking about with the MMA people and the fitness people and the nutrition. Like, every single sect has these people, and it's like
because everybody eats, so everybody has an opinion. Like, every niche has their own nutritional gurus and things, and like, and it changes so drastically too. I didn't realize how rapidly it changes until I really got into like the fitness nutrition side of Instagram, because then you get to see the fads. Like, it's crazy,
so fast.
Like, it's different every month.
It's nuts. And what's wild is, like, if you find something that works for you, because everyone's different and it's different. Each person has their own everything, like their genetics, their daily whatever. If it works for you, just do it. Like, what? Like, I don't know. It's so wild because what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you and whoever else.
But if you know why it works for you, then you might actually be able to help somebody. That's the problem, is people don't know why it works for them, and so they just tell people to do what they did. But if they don't understand that your calorie needs are different than mine, or your BMR is different than mine, and they don't understand how a calorie deficit works, or they don't understand how protein versus fats or carbs work, then how can they actually help somebody who isn't them?
Correct.
And that's where it's like, okay, just because somebody looks good or lost a lot of weight does not make them an expert in this field, does not mean you should be taking their nutritional advice.
Correct. Yeah, it's wild. On that note, how do you go about your weight cuts?
I have a nutritionist. His name is Eric Pena. He is
awesome,
fantastic. He has done Grant's last couple of cuts, and he'll be doing my next cut. I haven't fought in forever because of knee injuries and not being able to find fights. So it will be probably right around 2 years from my last fight when I get to fight again 8 months from now. So I have not actually done a weight cut with Eric, but I've seen how he works with Grant, and he's done my out of camp nutrition as well. And he's fantastic. As for, like, if I could sum up how to cut weight to somebody who's like new to it, I do help some younger fighters do it as well. It's not something I want to do full time, and it's not something that I feel qualified to do full time because I'm too busy to be up to date on new research the way Eric is. But I do it for the younger guys who can't afford like an expensive nutritionist yet. You would need to be in a calorie deficit, obviously. So I am eating in a calorie deficit probably 4 to 8 weeks maybe out. And that calorie deficit is not super extreme at first. My calories stay pretty high, depending on how my training intensity is that day. And then fight week. So the most important thing is your water. So the way you manipulate your water is going to determine how difficult your weight cut is. So that last week, you're not losing body fat. You're not, like, you can't lose body fat that fast. So what you're actually manipulating is just your water and your body's hydration levels. So the way we do our weight cuts, we deplete fiber and most of our carbohydrates that last week, and replace with much higher fat and much higher protein. So calories are still staying about the same for fight week. I didn't used to do it that way. I used to cut my calories very low for fight week, and they made my fight weeks way more miserable. So I don't do that anymore. My calories stay about the same, and we just manipulate sodium, carbs, and fiber. So those are the 3 things that hold water into the muscle cell. So when you drop those 3 things, what ends up happening is you're drinking tons of water. So your body is used to shedding that water right away because it knows that it's getting replenished with plenty more. So you pee like crazy all fight week because this water is just going through you. And then we usually cut sodium about 3 days before weigh-ins. So that gives us enough time to just shed that water that sodium would previously have held into the muscle cell. And then we finish up the cut in, I like the tub. Some people prefer the sauna. I feel like I can't breathe in the sauna. I hate it. So I like the hot tub so my head can be out in fresh, normal air. And we literally just dehydrate ourselves down to that weight. It is not something that anybody else should do to lose weight. It is not like you don't need to cut in the sauna if you have weight loss goals. You don't need to cut in the hot tub if you're trying to look leaner. Does not work that way. You will put that weight back on the second you drink water. It is not good for you.
Did you do it when you did fitness? Like your competition, or different?
So the way it's done there is quite a bit different. It's more like just that was more of like a calorie deficit. So like depleting calories, and you have to. I don't understand like the mechanisms behind that nearly as much. I had a coach for that process. Yeah. That's something I've never really looked into on my own. But from what I understand, it's making the skin look almost dry. Yeah. So the way they dehydrate you, like you do dehydrate a little bit, not nearly to the extreme that we do for MMA, because like I look like a Holocaust victim when I'm on the scale. Like I would not look good on stage because I wouldn't look full. Right. So then I think what they had us do like is like a small amount of water and like a little carb load, like that last day before you get on stage, and it like fills out your muscles and your skin looks like thick because it's so like dry. And so that's why like there's very little fluid between the skin and the muscle, and that's why the muscles pop, from what I understand.
Interesting.
That's how it's a little bit different.
Yeah. And sugar, I think.
I know like some people will take like
gummies shot, or
like a shot before they get on stage is a thing. I don't know
interesting.
Just to like dry out I don't know if that's bro science or if it's, because that enters all of our, or if that's like a real research thing. But I noticed like a lot of girls like took a shot of vodka before they went on stage.
Wow, I never heard that. That's crazy.
It's terrible right now.
I would be wasted. Even now, I'm like such a lightweight. I'm sure they are too. Just
right, and you're not like you're dehydrated. You're not on all the food. I feel like I'd be like,
yeah, not good. Okay, I didn't see it anywhere, but what is your meet story with your husband? How'd you guys meet? What's the whole story? Because I was looking and I was like, I wonder did you ever talk about it?
I mean, yeah, like when people ask, I guess I've never posted about it. I don't know why. Like, there's not like a specific reason. But
I feel like it's always a fun story though.
It's kind of boring. Like we started talking online. So like I met him at a fight that my friend at the time was fighting on in Kansas City. He was training in Kansas City. I was training in Springfield. I don't actually remember meeting him. But he remembers meeting me. But then like, is he
from Missouri also?
He's from Nebraska. But he was training in Kansas City at the time. And so like I was living in Springfield, like 2.5 hour difference. So I was in Kansas City for a fight for one of my friends, and so I met him at that event, and then we became like internet friends. Like we followed each other and stuff, and then I started. He messaged me on Snapchat, and then we just kind of started chatting. So like that's the whole story. So and then he like drove down one weekend to visit me, and then we started dating. So and we moved in together like 2 months later. So luckily that.
I mean, distance is like, tough. So if you know, you know.
Yeah. And it was like, yeah, we did the long distance kind of for a little bit. And then, yeah, literally moved to Kansas City like a few months after we started dating. So
you're like, that's it.
In the gym he was at was like a much bigger gym. I had more training partners for me, and it was just a win-win situation.
Makes sense.
And as I said, I was ready to get out of Missouri, so I just went to a slightly more interesting part of Missouri. And now we're in Florida, and I'm so glad. I love it here.
Game changer.
Oh yeah.
It didn't actually occur to me till now, but I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like a lot of the women in MMA are gay. Why?
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Like, it's not.
I understand. It's not like a.
Usually get into like most MMA fighters are weird. First of all, like we're all like there's a lot of nerds, like a lot of like anime nerds, a lot of Star Wars nerds. Like I feel like it's a lot of kids who got bullied, so it's probably like some less people who were less
more like introverts,
socially accepted when they were younger. A lot of them ended up in martial arts.
Yeah.
It's a really great outlet, and so I think it makes sense. I think it's a tough sport. Like the more like butch girls probably preferred it. We've got quite a few lesbian couples
so many
at our gym that I train with. So yeah, it's pretty common. I wouldn't say.
Are there more in the women's divisions?
I don't think so. I think it's probably pretty even. I mean, obviously, there's more
women
lesbian fighters than male gay fighters because there's like only one. But like it's at least it's out.
Yeah.
But and I think it's probably more acceptable to be a woman who's gay than a man who's gay in
this world.
In the sport, it's just I get it. It's very.
I wonder if it's a testosterone thing.
What's up?
If it's a testosterone thing, or like what? Like
I think it's just a cultural thing. Like MMA fans tend to be more conservative. MMA fans tend to be like just be a little more macho. Like it makes sense that it would be less accepted, and it's going to take some time for that to like be a thing that's common in men's MMA. Like I'm sure there probably are. Like there are male gay NFL players. There just aren't very many because of the culture surrounding the sport. Like it's just not common. And there's also, you have to remember too, like statistics wise, there's way less gay people in the world than there are straight people. So if we look at the actual population size, like of course there's only going to be a handful, but I get what you're saying. Like it makes sense that MMA has attracted more lesbians than gay men.
I guess if you look at most women's sports, it's a lot like the soccer or the basketball, like a lot of lesbians. Yeah. I didn't realize it until now. Like I wonder why the professional women.
Just like there's a lot more gay men that are hairdressers than that are NFL players because it's they tend to have more feminine attributes, so they tend to be attracted to a more feminine career path, which is like. And then on the other end, like if you're a gay woman, you might be more athletic. You might have hung out with boys your whole life.
Oh
So
yeah,
it makes sense. Like I think it's just personality differences, honestly.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So anyhow, it just made me think because you're not. So I'm like, you're one of the few who aren't.
There's plenty of straight women, especially more so now. I think for a while it was like
it felt like it was all. I mean, and I don't care. Like
there were a lot more, and
it doesn't matter.
Several, but I mean, there's plenty of like if I went through the whole UFC roster, I think probably a slight majority would be straight. I would think
for women, really.
Oh yeah. There's not that many.
Really?
I mean, there's plenty of like. If I think about like, look at obviously like Amanda Nunes. Like, if we look at the recent champs, like Amanda Nunes, Myra, who's fighting for the championship. She's married to a woman. But like, Raquel Pennington's married to a woman. I'm doing sparring through 35 right now. But like, Rhonda is straight.
Straight.
Holly
Tate, straight. McDermott, straight.
Yeah, Claudia, Carla Esparza, Rose Namajunas.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
We go through it. Like, there's plenty. Like,
yeah. Yeah,
Jasmine,
it's so interesting.
She's fighting this weekend. Jillian Robertson fighting this weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, that helps. Discussing it, figuring it out.
Like, once you like look at the list, you're like, okay, yeah, there's plenty of
I mean, it doesn't matter. They're good at what they do, and that's it.
I think it's more the sports become more attractive to all different kinds of women more recently, for sure.
Definitely. Are you working on any special projects or anything?
My NFT project has some fun things coming up. It's been a very long time coming, but if you guys want to check that out, go to Immortals Fight Club NFT on Instagram. Please check us out. We are doing some really cool things for the fighters and the MMA fans in our community. We just want to connect everybody together, and hopefully everybody will make some money. So we're working on that. I'm also on Fight Bananas every week. Almost every Tuesday, we're live on Facebook, YouTube, through Fight Bananas at 1 p.m. Eastern. We have all sorts of guests come on. John Anik was on a couple weeks ago, or last week, which was super awesome. Nice. So please go check out that episode. And we are live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. for Betting Bananas, which is our betting picks show with Dave and myself. So if you bet on MMA, you should watch our show first because you might make more money. So yeah, check all that out. Other than that, I'm just trucking away at recovery. I'm really going to try and be more active on social while I'm recovering, just sharing my journey, hopefully building a community for other injured athletes, because I know how tough it is for everybody out there that's recovering from something like that. So just keep trucking away, guys. Give me a follow. Hit me up. Message me if you have questions about literally anything.
What is your handle?
It's at the Ruthless _Elle Dawson. I know it says Wagman on my thing, but my last name is Dawson. Old news. DAWSON. No worries.
Anything else you want to share?
No, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. My pleasure.